Mic check. Mic check. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Check, check, check. Check, check. Check. Check, 1, 2.
I remember this young lady, she had just gotten vaccinated. She's African American and she goes home and she talks to her grandmother. Grandma, you need to be vaccinated. Grandma says, absolutely not. I don't trust the healthcare system. I don't trust any of these people. I'm not going to get vaccinated. The young lady says, well, Mom, the lady who vaccinated me is African American. She says, well, in that case, take me, I want to get vaccinated. The message is important, but so is the messenger.
Data and science and study have shown that African positions us at Texas Southern University to actually have access to innovative and breakthrough clinical studies. We do a lot of work to increase awareness about clinical research participation, but without an opportunity to actually open access for individuals to participate and to build trust in clinical trial process, we are very limited.
Pharmacy is a very important team in communication with the community. And we are not only have a PharmD program, we also have a PhD program. With that, we have more outreach to the community.
We are the #1 producers of African American pharmacists in the state of Texas. Pharmacists are a significant part of the healthcare team. They're able to immunize patients. They're able to help them in a variety of health settings per se.
TSU had the RCMI support back in 1980s, especially in terms of research infrastructure. So the student and scientists can conduct most cutting edge research, especially in the area of drug discovery and development.
In 2024, the College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences has celebrated its existence of over 70 years. We lead a lot of initiatives
Check, check,
advancing
check.
health equity,
Mic check, mic
training
check.
community health
Mic
workers,
check, mic check.
providing
1, 2, 3.
continuing
Good
education
morning.
for
Mic check.
community,
1, 2,
health
1,
workers
2,
as
1, 2,
well as
3.
for our pharmacy
Mic
and
check.
health administration students.
1, 2,
In this
3.
initiative, we are going to partner with UTMB, Yale University, and Morehouse School of Medicine. We will be able to gain more experience and
Mic
resources
check.
and
1, 2,
guidance
3.
on
1,
how
2,
to
3.
recruit for
Mic
clinical
check.
trial
Mic
and
check.
how to
1,
conduct
2,
clinical
3.
trials.
Good
So this
morning.
clinical
Mic
research
check.
initiative
1.
under the EQB-Med funding mechanism allows us not just to provide opportunities for clinical trial participation for community members, but it creates a platform for us to train the next generation of pharmacists that will be culturally competent, that will have an high level of awareness of engaging with community members to promote the concept of diversity and equal representation in clinical research participation.
Hello, my name is Veronica Ajewale. I'm an associate professor of pharmacy practice and the director for the Community Engagement Core of the NIH-funded Center for Biomedical and Minority Health Research here at Texas Southern University. I want to say a big thank you to you and the community members for joining us for today's program. We are really excited that we will be sharing a lot of great information alongside the experts of speakers and panelists that will be leading us into this conversation. So please have your questions ready. We would have an opportunity to take your questions after today's presentations. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to our continued collaboration. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. And you are welcome to our seminar titled Recharge and Thrive, the Art of Mastering Mental Wellness. I appreciate everyone, even those joining us online, and of course to our esteemed guests here this morning. I really appreciate you all's attendance. My name is Nkechi Ogbo. I'm a pharmacist by training. I am from Texas Southern University's College of Pharmacy and Health Services. I've had the privilege of being a pharmacist for 18 years and counting. I know I don't look it, but you know. I have to add some humor. But under the direction of Dr. Veronica Ajewale, who's a professor at Texas Southern University. So she's the director of the Community Engagement Core on Texas Southern University. And we are humbled and honored to be here this morning. And indeed, thank you also to our speakers, our panelists. All the information sharing here, I think, is timely and it is worthwhile everyone's attention. So please, for those joining us online, stay till the end. You don't want to miss it, and we'll all be blessed for it. I'm going to play this, and then we'll go ahead and...
Texas Southern University's Center for Biomedical and Minority Health Research Community Engagement Core is funded by the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparity Research Center for Minority Institutions
Can we hear it?
Program. The CEC works directly with communities to identify and address health-related concerns and reduce health disparities related to ethnic minorities. We provide health education and partnerships with healthcare systems, federally qualified health centers, community and faith-based organizations. For more information, visit us on social media at CEC Texas Southern U or give us a call at 713-313-1.
Thank you. So that, in a nutshell, opportunities to engage community members and leaders, again, like using this forum, increasing the citizens' motivation to report crime or suspicious activity, and again, building strong partnerships within their committee. So thank you again. We appreciate it. Thank you to our vendors. Crescent Management, thank you, and Healthway Solutions, we appreciate you for being a vendor to today's event. All right, Mr. Mark Ibarra, who is in our clinical research department, will just say
that being said, I'm proud to announce that we've actually launched a clinical research registry. That clinical research registry is a way for the community members and anyone really who would like to join to show their interest in clinical research. A registry is a data repository. It's basically a place where people, community members can join, share their detailed information, and basically just share their interest in clinical research trials. The reason why we wanted to launch this registry is to establish a comprehensive and diverse database of potential clinical research participants at TSU. The registry is going to serve as a valuable resource for identifying individuals for future clinical trials that we will host at Texas Southern University. With that being said, I want to invite you guys to scan the QR code there. There will also be a link throughout this event where you guys can click and kind of join that registry. Anyone is welcome to join the registry as long as you're above the age of 18 and you're interested in clinical research. Those are basically the only two criteria that we ask for. Once again, thank you guys so much, and I'll give it back to Dr. Obro.
Thank you, Mr. Ibarra. Appreciate that. And then here, so for those joining us online and those also in person attendance, go ahead and feel free to scan the QR code if you want to know more about what the CEC, Texas Southern University, is all about. And then also, of course, we have catered to our community health workers. At the end of this, we'll be more than happy to give you 1.5 credit hours of this. But please, you have to sign the attendance also online too. Then on, without a further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker, Ms. Khaleda Medayer. She is the founder and CEO of Clearsense Management Company and the practice owner, principal provider of Clearsense Management Counseling. Her management company provides professional consulting training and development and keynote speaking ungirded with counseling principles. Her practice focuses creating space for clients to feel seen and heard as they work to achieve wholeness in their lives. She's also a contributing author to the textbook Administrative Leaders and School Counselors, Building on Theories, Standards, and Experiences for Optimal Health Collaboration. Without a further ado, Khaleda, take the stage.
All right, good morning, everyone. I want to first thank you all for this opportunity. I'm very grateful to God for this platform. I believe that He creates all of those and puts me on the hearts and minds of those that He wants me to share with. This is such an exciting opportunity. I believe that knowledge and wisdom sharing is probably one of the greatest gifts that we can provide, both individually, one-on-one, but also with communities. You know, if somebody wants to impart wisdom and knowledge into me, I will sit at your feet all day long. And so that just speaks to how much I consider myself a student in terms of learning and learning in all areas of life. So I'd like to thank the CEC again for allowing me to, they let me come back, y'all. So I am very appreciative of that. So for those of you who have ever heard me speak before, you know that I practiced the first principle I ever learned as a communication studies major at the University of Texas. That principle is this, that I need to scan the audience and find somebody to lock eyes with and start shaking my head so I can get them to agree that if this presentation goes down in flames, they're just going to keep shaking their head and saying, yes, Carlette, you are doing a fantastic job. But I want you all to know, guess what? Today, audience, you are off the hook because I have my first cheerleader, my mommy in the back, and so she's going to keep that face that she had, you know, when I learned to walk, talk, and feed myself. That's the face that she's going to have the entire time. So y'all are off the hook. I'm just going to keep looking back there. I know she's praying for this. Amen? Okay. All right. So I believe that time is such a precious gift. Time is something we can't get back, and so I try not to waste time, yours and mine, so we're going to go ahead and get started talking about mastering the art of mental wellness. And so I'm going to start with this quote, and yes, This quote comes from famed actress and the first exercise queen, if we want to think of her in that way, Jane Fonda. She says, "We are not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be whole." And if we think about the ways that we consciously and maybe unconsciously strive for perfection, needing things to be just so, almost rigid, keep that in mind, we miss out on the opportunity to have a full, whole, and expansive life. And that's the life that we should really be going after, okay? So, when I was given this title, I was like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to make this come alive? So I am trained in impact therapy from Dr. Ed Jacobs. He's in West Virginia. And Dr. Ed Jacobs, yes, he's seasoned. He's a little long in the tooth. But even in his practice of counseling at like 85, 90 years old, he says counseling should not be boring. If you are bored, I'm bored, so let's not be bored together. So as a result of that, he teaches about making counseling come alive, come off the page. How can you use analogies and props and your full body to be able to take sometimes very rich and dense, heavy material, make it come alive for the people that you want to use it. So with that in mind, when I saw the title, The Art of Mental Wellness, okay, y'all, it made me think about dance. So I am dedicating this presentation to my dance teacher from when I was a little girl. So Miss Peggy, if you are still on this side of heaven, this is for you because it immediately made me think about my dance training and the art, the dance of being mentally well. So for the purpose of our presentation, you may be asking, well, what's the dance? And Carla, why are you showing this person breaking his heart out on the floor? Well, for us, the dance is cognitive flexibility, being able to be nimble. Here's the actual definition of cognitive flexibility. I think it's very important. It says cognitive flexibility is contacting the present moment fully as a conscious human being, meaning you are awake to your experience of being a human being, and based on whatever your situation affords, keep that in mind as well, you're going to change and persist in behavior in the service of your chosen values, right? Ebbing and flowing. So now, when we go back and we look at this break dancer, we understand, right, that cognitive flexibility means being able to ebb and flow and adjust and move, and maybe you are upside down on your elbows some days, right? But you know that it's in service to your chosen values. Okay, what's the dance floor? For us, the dance floor is one of my favorite terms to teach as a counselor, and that is duality. Duality says that multiple things, even seemingly opposing things, can be true at the same time. But it's when we try to push one set of circumstances out of this picture frame that we're viewing in order to let another set of circumstances comfortably rest in that frame, that's where we can find ourselves not being flexible. So you may ask, okay, Carla, what is an example of duality? Now, true to form, everyone, this is an example that I have to provide in counseling quite often. Here's that example. I can love you and not need to be in a relationship with you. Both of those things can be true at the same time. Here's another example. You may be trying, but you also need to focus your efforts in a different direction and try harder. I'm going to give you an example of that in just a bit. Both of those things are true, right? So for those of us who have children, when you hear your kid, I'm trying. You need to try differently maybe, and you need to try harder. I acknowledge your try, but there's still more to be done. And so what I'm really talking to you all about today is acceptance and commitment therapy. It actually falls under the umbrella of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Many of you all may be familiar with that term. I feel like acceptance and commitment therapy is a gentle way of approaching our thoughts, how they impact our emotions, and our resulting behaviors. Now, I also practice REBT, and I feel like REBT under the umbrella of CBT is the slap, because I have to say things like, you made that up. That is irrational, right? But we're not always ready for that, so we sometimes need to start with the acceptance and commitment therapy. And so, what I want you all to know about acceptance and commitment therapy is that it's grounded in these things, that we have a choice. Every day that we wake up, we are considering what things I need to accept and what things I need to change. And it's really the difference between practicing being flexible and being rigid. So I'm going to give you an example of that. This pipe cleaner here, even though it can take on the semblance of being a linear shape, it actually can bend. And look, it can bend almost to the point of breaking, right? But it doesn't break. It can recover its shape, right? It can become linear again. This pencil, though, represents rigidity. Let's say this is you and a life circumstance is coming up against it and pressure is happening. Snap. And so the question is, am I going to be flexible or am I going to choose rigidity? Because choosing rigidity is a choice. So these components that you're seeing here, these are the steps to the dance that we're going to do. The dance of cognitive flexibility, right? And as I go through each of these, it just caused me to think about, those times where you're about to test your new moves, like having your fan on the ground and somebody yells out from the audience, "Why are you so stiff? Move," right? That's what we're gonna learn to be more flexible. So, choice. You could be rigid in terms of your values, being aimless, saying things like, "I don't even know what I want, and my life is guided by somebody else's value system," right? Sometimes we are guided by values that aren't even germane to 2025. They may have been relevant for 1981, but it's 2025. Or we're like a beautiful balloon that's not anchored to anything, right? And we've seen that before. If a balloon has become severed from, whatever the base is, what is it doing? Moving around aimlessly as the wind blows. Well, guess what? Some of us can be beautiful and handsome, aimlessly moving about life just as the wind blows. Or we can choose flexibility with our values, knowing what matters, and knowing what matters right now, being clear about what's important in the here and now. Next, we could choose stagnation, which says, I really just don't manage to act on the things I care about. I have all of these dreams and goals and plans, and then I just sit right here and do the same things that I've been doing. Or we could choose committed actions, being flexible, not only knowing what matters with our values, but then doing what matters, having clear goals that are values-based. And the reason why this is so important is because as life shifts for us, we can drift off course. But if we're clear about our values, if we're clear about what matters to us in that moment, that becomes our anchor. That becomes our North Star. That's the thing that helps us to be grounded and get back on track. Here's the next area. You could be rigid and decide to be hooked by your thoughts and feelings. We call it in counseling cognitive fusion. So that's where you take your thoughts and your emotions and you fuse them with who you are. I think it, I feel it, so it must be true. The example I give to my clients a lot of times regarding getting hooked by your thoughts is being at baggage claim, waiting on your bag, right? What do we know about baggage claim? Half the time we're already tired and we're waiting on our bag and maybe the conveyor belt starts and the first bag comes around and it looks like our bag, so what do? We go up and examine it. And then we realize, oh man, that's not my bag. So we don't pick up that bag and then walk out of the airport and say, oh well, this one's good enough. No, we let that that bag continue on the conveyor belt. Here's the thing, sometimes to our frustration, that bag comes around several times before ours, look, shaking their heads, yes, before your actual bag comes out. But even when you're tired, you still don't pick up someone else's bag. And the same is true with our thoughts. You could become unhooked and allow a thought sometimes to just be a thought. And the reason why I use that conveyor belt at baggage claim is because true to form, sometimes a thought will come around and come around, and we're like, okay, this is the third time, so I must need to pick this thought up. It has to be germane to my life. That's not true. We can examine it and see if it fits with the facts of our situation, and if it doesn't, we don't pick that thought up. In the same, we don't pick that bag up. Because could it be picking up that thought or that bag is picking up baggage that doesn't belong to you? Next, you could be rigid and decide to remain on autopilot. And this is where you spend a lot of time in the past and you spend a lot of time in the future, but you give very little thought to the present moment. There's an example that's given about a lady who was asked to describe her child's third year of life. And she was struggling because her mind had been filled with all of her regrets up to the third year of parenting, and where's she going to go to preschool, and does she need to buy a new house, and are they going to have the right friends? Here was the unfortunate part. She was asked a question about her child's third year of life when her child was 3. Imagine being that disconnected from the present moment that you don't recognize what I like to call the gifts of today and the choices of today. But you could be flexible. That's a choice. Engaging in present moment awareness, which simply says this: be here now. Not over there, here. The past and the future, they are for context, but they are not places for us to live and build houses and get our mail there. Sometimes I have to explain to clients the most that you can do with the past is beat yourself up about it because it's already happened. And the most you really can do with the future is scare yourself because you're already thinking about the worst case scenario and how you won't be able to successfully cope. The gifts and the choices lie in the present. Next, you could choose to be rigid and just straight out live a life of refusal. Saying, you know what, I just struggle to accept reality. And it sounds like, that's not true. That's not true for me, right? We say those things. The refusal to accept reality. Or we could be flexible and choose acceptance. And this definition is actually the definition of radical acceptance, which says that we accept things as they are, not as they would be, could be, or should be, or how we want them to be. And then we have a part. We determine what changes we need to make because of the reality we are accepting and despite the reality we're accepting. So an example of this is, let's say that I was laid off from my job, right? I don't go back up to that organization and, hey, y'all, let me get to my desk. I have accepted the reality I'm no longer employed there. And then I still have a part. What changes do I need to make because of this reality? Well, I got to get back in the game and start applying again and revamping my resume and connecting. What changes do I make despite this reality? Well, in the interim, I may not have the same daily routine, but it's an active choice for me to get out of the bed and still do some meaningful things until my next arrives. That is an example of because and despite. Being flexible. You could choose a life of being rigid and looking at yourself in concrete, your concrete self. And this is having a narrow, one-sided view of both yourself and others. Think of if you actually walked into wet concrete and it dried like up to your knees or so. You would only be able to see in the direction that concrete dried. You wouldn't be able to look for yourself, a 360-degree examination. Or you could be flexible and choose to be in your observing self. It's also called your noticing self, where you're paying attention to you. It's also called self as context. And this, again, is taking a 360-degree view of yourself. You're recognizing that you are not your experience. You're actually an observer and a participant in the experience. And the best example I can give is this. The sky is the sky. It will always be the sky as we see it, blue and beautiful and expansive. But sometimes different weather patterns and conditions roll in, right? And sometimes, we will say, well, the sky is gray right now. But the sky isn't actually gray. It's the clouds that have rolled in that have temporarily, right, caused a different view of what we're seeing. But those clouds move in and out, but the sky is still the sky. Last year, we experienced Hurricane Beryl, and after Hurricane Beryl was over, we didn't rename the sky Hurricane Beryl. The sky was still the sky. You are the sky. You are still you. Experiences may roll in and out of your life, and they give you context and information, and you learn from them, but you are you. And you are you in the context of what's happening to you. So I'm going to leave you all with 2 tools to be able to put these things into practice. The first here is called the ACT Matrix, and it's values-based. Here's what the ACT Matrix is. You think about, once again, what's the most important? What's the value? And this becomes a progress marker or something that you can check yourself against. So let's say that I have made health and wellness my value, and being physical and getting activity is important. Well, what are my hands and feet and my head and heart doing that could be taking me away from that? Is my head and my heart holding on to a message that I'll never be as healthy as I want to be? And so I'm, giving myself self-deprecating messages. And so as a result, I am laying on the couch eating yet another sleeve of Oreos. But I've said health, wellness, physical activity, movement is a value. So what could my head and heart hold? What could my hands and feet be doing that drives me towards it? Maybe in my head and heart, I'm holding the idea that I can do the best that I can. Self-compassion. Maybe my hands and feet recognize that I can't get to the gym, but I can stand up at my desk and put on my over-the-ear headphones, and I can dance my way to some movements while maybe I'm working on an email or a project. P.S. I actually used to do that when I worked in an office. It just helped me get through the day, right? But this is that progress mark. Here's the next tool that you can use. It's one of my favorites, the Eisenhower Matrix, because it deals with time and where we're placing our time. Again, we decide what's the most important, what's the value, and then we determine what is urgent and important. Those things need to be handled now. What things are important, but they're not urgent, right? These are the things that we can schedule in the next 7 to 10 days or so in service of our value. The next, what are some things that, hear me now, feel urgent, but they aren't important? That can be, well, I need to check my phone again, or I need to give myself a break or a snack, or I need to go away. But you didn't say that that was the value for the day. You have a feeling of a sense of urgency, but it's really not important to what you value. Also, this can be imposed on you when someone else comes with things that they feel are urgent. Then they need to work on those things because it's urgent and important to them. You're making it feel urgent to me, but it's actually not important to my mission right now. And then finally, things that are not urgent and not important, we shouldn't be engaging in them in that moment. Now, here's the unfortunate thing that we do sometimes. We will take all of those boxes and fuse them in to urgent and important, and then we're stressed. Our list of to-dos is as long as our arm. But we could always stop, right? Go back to our North Star. Go back to our anchor. How much of these things are urgent and important? So I leave you with these 3 things. If you don't remember anything else I've said today, know what matters, do what matters, be here now. Practice being the pipe cleaner and not the pencil. Thank you. I'll take any questions that y'all have. Meaning the handouts? I will make sure that the team gets those handouts so that you can start putting them into practice. Yes. Other questions? Yes. Yes. So That's a great question, and my answer to that is that we can always give back baggage that doesn't belong to us. But how are we able to discern if we've accidentally picked up a baggage that doesn't belong to us? Present moment awareness, not being on autopilot, right? Because autopilot may be the very thing that caused us to pick up something that didn't belong to us. Someone else's emotional baggage, their weight, right? Their projections of how they feel about themselves being placed onto us. But if we are constantly practicing, be here now, and that's on repeat, that'll cause us to look down and say, oh, wait, I'm gonna give this back to you. This does not belong to me, and do so with confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, can we give her a round of applause? Thank you so much. And just in case you were shy and you may be embarrassed to ask a question, please feel free to write it down, and we will read it anonymously. Thank you. I am going to go to the next session. Wait, I held it up wrongly. All right, moving on to our panel discussion, and I'm going to introduce everyone one at a time, and then please do take your seat. First person is Dr. Cottrell Jacobs, and he has 19 years experience in a variety of behavioral health settings, including education, counseling centers, community mental health clinics, psychiatric hospitals, and private practice. His areas of interest include supervision and training, mood disorders, personality disorders, marital counseling, anger issues, program evaluation, and performance improvement. He is a member of the American Psychiatric Association and a professional counselor supervisor. Dr. Jacobs currently works full-time for Community Health Network as a behavior therapist and maintains a private practice, Therapeutic Counseling Solutions, PLC, in Stafford, Texas. He founded the Minority Behavioral Health Alliance, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, as a way of giving back and outreach to underserved communities. Members of the Minority Behavioral Health Alliance include licensed professional counselors, licensed clinical social workers, licensed marriage and family therapists, licensed chemical dependency counselors, clinical psychologists, occupational therapists, psychiatrists, and others interested in promoting the benefits of therapy to BIPOC areas. Without further ado, thank you so much, Dr. Jacobs. Next panelist member is Ms. Antonisha Stewart, and she is a licensed professional counselor and certified anger resolution therapist. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Houston and a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from Texas Southern University. Throughout her career, Antonisha has spent time in the nonprofit world, K-12 academics, and healthcare. As an account representative for the UT Health Employee Assistance Program, Antonisha offers wellness consultation, training, and counseling services to organizations, universities, systems, and municipalities across Texas. In her free time, Antonisha enjoys traveling just like me and showing off her self-taught culinary skills via TikTok. Thank you so much. Next person is Dr. Folayemi Adeluyi. And sorry, this is not the, I'm going to skip it and I'm going to read her bio next. I'm going to read Dr. Jonathan Blassingame III, and he is a licensed clinical psychologist and assistant professor in the Menninger Department of Psychiatry at Baylor College of Medicine. He directs the intensive outpatient program at Bentop Hospital and co-leads the psychology postdoctoral fellowship trained at Emory, UT Health, and Baylor. He teaches on racism, health inequities, and psychotherapy. He specializes in treating suicidality, personality disorders, and trauma using evidence-based interventions. His research explores trauma and suicide among descendants of enslaved Africans. Dr. Blessingame is committed to improving patient outcomes through empirically supported approaches. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and welcome to the stage also Carletta, please go right ahead. And I am going to, for 1 second, read Dr. Folayemi's Adeluyi while you take your seat, ma'am. I'm going to break protocol because I want to really introduce you, Dr. Folayemi, and my apologies because I don't think we had the correct version. Thank you. All right, so Dr. Folayemi Adeluyi is known as Dr. Fola in a highly skilled and is a highly skilled and board certified nurse practitioner with dual certifications in adult gerontology, acute care, and family practice. She holds a doctorate in nursing practice and has over 17 years of experience in the healthcare industry, spanning hospital medicine, primary care, urgent care, and wellness-focused healthcare. With a deep passion for patient advocacy and holistic care, Dr. Fola is committed to bridging gaps in healthcare access, particularly for underserved communities and busy professionals seeking personalized, high-quality care. As the founder of Healthway Solutions PLLC, her practice provides both inpatient and virtual healthcare services. She specializes in men and women's health, focusing on chronic disease management, urgent care services, weight management program, hormone replacement therapy, and wellness optimization. Her mission is to empower individuals, especially women, by providing comprehensive patient-centered care that enhances longevity and quality of life. Without further ado, we are going to go ahead and do the discussion. Thank you. Everyone has a mic? Okay, let me give you this one also to use, you can pass along. Thank you.
Hey, can you all hear me now? All right, great. Hi, welcome. Since we're talking about wellness, I'm going to start off with you, Dr. Jacobs. Okay, so given that we are talking about wellness and what's going on in our social political environment, especially when it comes to BIPOC communities, based on your experience in underserved communities, what mental health resources or strategies most impact communities or individuals to help them rebrand and recharge?
Well, as a therapist, I'd like to say we definitely want to advocate coming to talk to a therapist, but obviously in certain communities, it's kind of taboo, seen as weakness to go see a therapist. So one of the things we suggest is get adequate amounts of sleep. You have to be mindful that the body and mind works together. And some of us get in the habit of, hey, sleeping 4 to 5 hours and want to push through the day. But again, if you lack quality sleep, it's definitely going to influence your mood, your behavior, your emotions. So we suggest putting a routine together. It's called sleep hygiene, actually. Routines where you try to go to bed at the same time every night, if you can. Try to avoid naps throughout the day. Try to have the last full meal 2 or 3 hours ahead of time. Try to take a warm or hot bath opposed to a shower to relax the entire body. And maybe do some deep breathing exercises to help improve sleep at night. In addition to that, we also recommend exercise. I think Carletta mentioned something about just being active physically. So with that, a lot of times we have anger, anxiety, it's kind of built in, and we may have some displaced frustration at some point. So when exercising, we get those tensions out, and in essence, we don't want to have any displaced negative emotions. So by exercising, we have endorphins released in our brain. And so we do it consistently. I know, again, to be healthy, it's definitely great to have a good diet, but that's a whole other topic. But at least staying engaged, exercising, and get adequate sleep is something we recommend.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jacobs. This question is going to Ms. Stewart, since you brought up anger and stress. Both of these are very common and normalized in our community, but often stigmatized. So, Ms. Stewart, how can learning to process and release anger be a powerful way to recharge mentally and emotionally?
Great question. I think you kind of hit the hammer on the nail there. Anger and stress share in common one misconception, and that misconception is that they are bad, right? But in actuality, anger and stress are signals from the brain and sometimes from the heart that something's wrong, something's off, something doesn't feel right. Anger and stress, at minimal levels can be motivators. It's what we do when we receive those messages from our heart and from our brain that matter. An example, Ice Cube, I think 1988, somewhere along those times, he wrote a song after Dr. Dre got arrested and he was tired of police brutality. Do y'all know what that song is? Anybody know? I didn't say the title, but you know what I'm talking about. He channeled that anger into something legendary. So anger and stress, when used as they should be, right, when we take heed to those signals, we can channel those things into beautiful things, whether it's music, storytelling, art, dance, journaling, connection, vulnerability with others, and that's how you recharge. That's how you thrive under those conditions. You have to channel.
Well, thank you for that. Really appreciate that. This goes to Dr. Fola, which I think is a great segue, right? So, given that anger and stress are very common, I think, in all communities, but I think specifically in our community, again, given what's happening on a national level, even on a micro level, right? And what we do know is that women, particularly Black women, carry a lot of stress and a lot of anger, appropriate anger to be right. So I guess from your perspective, right, how can people reconnect with their bodies, specifically women, right, especially when dealing with chronic stress or illness as a part of a holistic mental health recharge?
Very good question. Thank you. I mean, with women, stress, illnesses, chronic lifestyle, especially for the single mothers, it is so easy to get disconnected from your body. And the best way for us to reconnect is by knowing those signals. Our body is built in such a way that it tells us when something is not right. But most time, we don't listen. We don't listen until it's really yelling at us. We miss the whispering stage and we feel like, oh, this headache now, I need to go to the hospital. And you get to the hospital and they find that you have an aneurysm. The headache has been there, or if to make things worse, the aneurysm even ruptured now. Or you've been having this headache and you've been taking Tylenol, using over-the-counter medication and all those stuff. And it got complicated. Before you get to the hospital, you already had a stroke because of untreated blood pressure. So it's very important for we women. I know it's not easy, especially being a single mother. In my practice, I see a lot of single mothers that are Black, and I know the struggle. It's not easy, the burden of having to think what their kids will eat, the financial stress, to pay rent. This is a real life situation. So what does work, for my practice, from my experience, is encouraging women to listen to their body. Relax. It doesn't hurt to take care of yourself. Don't feel guilt about it. You cannot pour anything from an empty cup. Come back to your body. Listen to your body. There's something we call body scanning. It's more like a mental meditation whereby within 1 minute, you're done doing it. Lying down and thinking, where is the pain? Where is the fatigue? Where is the tension build? Identifying those stressors and letting them go. It will bring you back home. Another way is, body movement, exercising. She talked about the dance. I was still expecting the dance. Yes, that is very important. There's a say that says movement is medicine. When we move, even if it's just 30 minutes in a day, we encourage people to move 30 minutes every day. But you can even break it like 10 minutes. You know, if you just have to move your body, release the stress, so, you know, just being connected back to your environment, that will really help. You know, go for a walk. Are you at work and you have 30-minute break? Some people have an hour. Make use of it. That is not the time to chit-chat. That's the time to listen to your body. You know, all those good things are the way to recharge. And when you think about that, it literally helps your wholeness, not just your mental. It helps everything about you, you know, and it brings you back to being able to live life as a whole and not the perfected life we talked about.
Well, thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So, Carla, this is for you. So what does a mentally thriving organization or community look like, right? And how can organization leaders and community leaders foster this environment?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. And so I'm going to be in my REBT hat with this one. So mentally thriving organizations recognize that they are one piece of a person's whole life. They are not the person's whole life. They're not the entire life. A mentally thriving organization not only promotes mental health and even physical wellness, but they set up conditions to make that accessible to those who are a part of their organization. Mentally thriving organizations recognize that most urgencies and emergencies are really a matter of poor planning and ineffective communication. And then finally, thriving organizations recognize the importance of having expectations that are both reasonable and realistic to where we are right now. And so I relate the human experience to being like in a symphony or an orchestra, right? And we know, if you've ever been to the Houston Symphony, the number of instruments that incorporate that entire orchestra or symphony is vast, right? And they work harmoniously together to create a beautiful sound. Now, there are different sections from time to time that stand up and they have their moment in the sun, as it were, with their solo, and they do things that are fantastic, but they sit back down. They also, once they are sitting back down, don't engage in passive-aggressive practices such as playing louder than the rest of the orchestra or standing up when it's not appropriate or trying to change the tempo of the concert, right? They seamlessly recognize I'm in concert with everything else, with everyone else on this stage. And I'm working so well to be seamless that it takes a discerning ear. So I used to play clarinet in middle school. So I can hear the clarinet only because I have a discerning ear for it. But otherwise, it should be harmonious. And our thriving organizations that are thriving mentally, physically, and emotionally recognize their part to play in the harmony. So what does that look like and sound like? That looks like and sound like if you're telling your individuals, oh, you need to take care of yourself and go to therapy if you need to, are you creating spaces for people to be able to do that so that therapy and going to see your, PCP doesn't feel burdensome? And one more thing that they need to do, remember, their physical health is a part of their whole health. Here's something that I'm going to ask every leader to stop doing because it's disingenuous. And it's this on Friday afternoons. You know what, y'all? Just unplug and don't even pay attention to work. Don't even worry about it. And then that same leader is sending 10 to 15 emails on Saturdays and Sundays while I'm in a church trying to pay attention so that I can come back on Monday. Hello? Okay, right. I don't even need to finish the rest of that. But instead of putting so much of the onus on the individual, create spaces where that can happen. So I believe now Android, Apple, they're the last to come on board, but Google, Gmail, Outlook, they all have delayed email sending. So instead of putting the onus on your members in that organization, don't pick up your phone, don't check your email, how about you don't send the email? Or how about you delay create the conditions for the things that you are expressing you want to thrive, create those conditions for it to happen.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful advice. So before I ask my next question, are there any questions from the audience? Anything that's been burning about just general mental wellness? So y'all good? Okay. So there has been on TikTok, this is for all the panelists, a surge of individuals, like content creators, creating content. In their minds, they believe that they're actually helping the community by sharing anecdotal evidence about their conditions and things like that, right? So I guess, can y'all speak to how do you discern who to listen to and who to ignore based on what they're sharing and how harmful this really impacts community? Like, for example, there are a couple gentlemen who were on TikTok giving advice to women about how to date men. Granted, these men are not in successful relationships, and a lot of them have trauma that are as unprocessed and unhealed. So how would you direct or advise the community to take these TikToks or information from social media with a grain of salt?
You want to go first? Actually, I want to go first. It's so funny. This literally happens to me. I remember talking to my sister. You know, we took the kids to Orlando, Florida during the spring, and there, during the, you know how big that place is. You just have to use the restroom anywhere you find yourself. And I realized I kind of have some irritation down there, and I got home, I know what it is, fungal kind of thrive where it's moist, and when you have to do the D everywhere, it's not safe, you easily get some infection, and I saw this Instagram lady, telling people that don't think toilet infection is real. Trying to afflate it to more like sexual infect. I was so mad. Like, I wanted to, write a response to her. My sister was like, no, they're just making content, just ignore. But I felt so bad that, some people will listen to this and they really think that's the reality. And they won't do what they're supposed to do to get better until it get complicated. There are some little things, especially in general medicine, there are some prevention we say is better than cure. When you get some little stuff, okay, I got some irritation, it's more like fungal to me, the way I felt, I treated it, I feel fine. But what about somebody that cannot just discern what is going on? So you're telling them to forget about it and move on with their life. I was like, why will you be doing this? So instead of doing that, all what I just did, went to my blog and I put the right information out there. So I think the best way to go about it is when we see those kind of wrong message, especially nowadays, everything is all about social media. We just have to find a way to redirect it in the right way. Let people know what is true and let people know what is just, it's just falsification of information, and let the people know so that they don't fall victim. That's all I have to say.
Well, first I would like to say social media is just that, social media. It's for entertainment purposes. Now, are there some things on there that are true and informative? Yes, but a lot of things, people are telling you their personal experiences. Some people can identify, some cannot, but as the saying goes, research the research. And sometimes people, if they say, it may have, say, 1,000 likes, oh, they must be true. It's true for those people, not necessarily for that particular person. So as we as trained professionals kind of segue into this, there's a space called, certifications called life coaches. They're somewhat, obviously don't have as much training as we do with being trained therapists, but they're giving advice about how to navigate. Again, nothing against them, but I think, as I said, research the research and see exactly what they got trained in. How can they give me advice on certain things they're not really familiar with? So as LMFTs, LPCs, LCSWs, obviously a lot more clinical hours based in research. So some stuff that holds true for you, great, but we as therapists have to do a better job of advocating for it. And a lot of things I see on social media, I can't come and respond to every single thing. So it's almost like it's frustrating on one hand, this person giving advice, and we know it's not true. So how do we get the word out to these other people? We can only comment on so many things. You'll sit 8 hours at a time. I'm not saying I've done that before, but you may sit and try to respond to every single thing you see. Like, this is not true. This is bad information. So again, we have to do a better job of going out in the community being advocates for trained professional mental health. And again, nothing against life coaches, but almost like stay in your lane. So.
You know, when I heard Dr. Jacobs saying, you know, test the research by the research, it immediately prompted in my mind, same thing, test the spirit by the spirit, right, for those of us who are familiar with that scripture. And what I would say is that it's not only important for mental health professionals to be advocates for factual evidence-based information, but I think it's also important for us to help our clients and those in the community to be advocates for their own experience. So as you may have noticed in the presentation that I provided, that's the same thing that I do in counseling. I give clients the clinical terminology for everything we discuss. Even if it sounds ratchet when we're talking about it, I'll say, wait, but here is the clinical definition, so that if you want to go ahead and look it up further and research it and you become your own advocate, so that their voices also become voices that are elevated. So in my practice, I have clients of all ages who will, hey, Carlette, can we look at this TikTok? Can we look at this Instagram? And we talk about those things, and then their voices get elevated in their various spaces, so that when mis and disinformation is, being spread, they're the first. My therapist, the clinical term for that is, and then they actually become a part of our collective advocacy to make sure people have the information that they actually need.
I want to add that we all have to be really careful of the information that we connect to when we're vulnerable, when we're bored, when it's 2, 3 a.m. and we're scrolling, when we're going through a heartbreak, whatever it is, when our children are acting a fool and we're on social media. Because the reason why these TikToks get 1 million likes or super popular is because people are relating to it. But most of the time we're relating in vulnerability, in bad times. So the information feels good, it's satisfying he says exactly, it's satisfying something in us and we're finding relation to it. But social media is not reality. The messages that you are connecting to are construed and intentionally made to entertain, to receive likes. They're not putting the messages out there to educate or to teach you how to get out of your funk. Some people are putting messages out there to keep you in your funk. So to your question of discernment in social media, I think the question that you have to ask to yourself is, why do I relate to this? Why does this sound good to me? Why do I want to put this heart or like on this post? Why am I about to send it to my spouse? Why am I about to send it to my girlfriend? You know what I'm saying? You got to ask that question before you interact with that post. Why is it tugging at me? Is it because I'm bored and it's just 3 a.m.? Is it because I saw one of my friends post it, so now it must be true? The discernment comes from asking self, why is this tugging at me? And sometimes you'll find it's not, I'm just bored. It's not, I don't miss that person. I'm just lonely. Okay, if you're bored or if you're lonely, go see a therapist.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I think a follow-up question to that, just thinking about how many unwell people are out here, just living life.
Us all.
Right? Living life. What do you think the biggest barrier to mental wellness? What do you think those are?
I'm going to just kick us off with one of the questions we were talking about. Wellness in all spaces, not just mental health wellness, cultural competency and impact. I'll give a perfect personal example. I want to say about a year ago, I went to a dermatologist, right? They take care of your skin. And I said, this is the problem I'm having going on. I've been experiencing it for a few years, and I'm just now getting a chance. Help me, please. And the lady goes, okay, I'm going to give you some shampoo. I need you to wash your hair every day for the next 2 weeks. Do y'all see the color of my skin? Because anyone that does, an African-American woman knows what? We don't do that. I said, you're going to create a new problem for me. So her lack of cultural competence created a barrier. I already didn't have the time to be taking off work and pushing aside other things to show up. But then when I did show up, this is what you tell me? And I had to pay $40 copay for it. I need some impact when I arrive. I need some change when I arrive. And I think sometimes whether we're going to the doctor asking for a checkup and they're just like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? 5-minute screening on to the next. We don't get an issue solved, or they're overlooking the things we're asking for support for. When that impact doesn't show up, when it's not there, when the information that we receive isn't usable, it isn't authentic, it doesn't match who we are, it's another barrier. So yeah.
I like that. We have to be, the saying goes, am I my brother's keeper? And not just trained professionals, but I always share information in terms of community involvement. I know Texana serves Fort Bend County, and the Harris Center, formerly MHMRA, serves Harris County. We can actually file mental health warrants. If we notice someone who's not safe for themselves nor the community, go file a mental health warrant for that person and get them removed off the streets so they can come stabilized. And once they're discharged, you do a better job, make sure you connect them with outpatient services. If need be, get family involved so they can have an adequate line of follow-up. Now, if a person just feeling unmotivated, could be several things. I mean, we talked about depression and anxiety earlier. I mean, depression, obviously, we're sad about things that happened in the past, and perhaps anxiety, worried about what may or may not happen in the future. So I think people need to be very real with themselves and kind of sit in that emotion for the moment. Really process what's going on. Where are you trying to get to? And if need be, write some goals out. I think I also need to practice, I guess, gratitude a lot more. One thing I do with each client when I have a private session, before we get into anything, hey, tell me something positive that happened over the last couple of weeks. Because they're coming to therapy already, the mindset, what am I going to talk about? I got this, and that. So when I tell them tell me something positive, man, well, this did happen, that did happen. It gets them away, kind of shifting their mindset so they can actually be grateful for what has happened positive in their life. But then from the negative standpoint, okay, let's put a plan together. Are you doing what you're supposed to do? Are you writing your goals down? And if need be, what's hindering you from that? Do you need e-reminders? Hold yourself accountable. If you have a support system in place, are they helping you out? I mean, I'm guilty myself. I may have an e-reminder on. If I'm in the middle of doing something, it goes off. I hit it. I keep doing what I'm doing. Put multiple e-reminders in. Maybe say if it's 3 o'clock, you need something to be done. 2:45, 3 o'clock, 3:15. If you do it multiple times, chances are you're going to stop what you're doing and finish it at that point. So again, hold themselves accountable and if need be, having a good support system in place.
I also like to add something. One of the major barriers is access. When it comes to access, especially for the people in the underserved areas, I mean, it can be a major barrier. And also, there are some things we take for granted also. Sometimes, like somebody that always have difficulty to sleep. You mentioned somebody scrolling on the phone at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. What is going on in my mind with that is like, what's the person even doing awake at, to even talk about? Why is the person awake at that time? So probably the person is dealing with some sleeping disorders, insomnia, cannot sleep. And looking at that, the person, when you have that kind of problem and you leave it unsolved, after a while, it affects your mood. You see such people ending with anxiety, with depression, and also talking about access, sometimes when you don't really have the access to go to, to the hospital, not even the hospital, we don't want you to come to the hospital, we want you to go to the outpatient first. The hospital is there when things are complicated. The outpatient, the clinics, is when you have access to see a doctor before things become bigger. Just checking yourself up. Some people just have some deficiencies in vitamins. and they said they're depressed. They've given them all the psychiatric medication, nothing is working. But by the time you check their hormonal balance, you check all the essential vitamins, you see everything being wacky. Vitamin D, ridiculously low. Vitamin B12, ridiculously low. And by the time you fix all those little things, you feel like it's magic. You feel like, oh, what have you done to me? You feel good again. So I think the main important thing is to provide access to care, and we have a lot of low-cost clinic, even for the people that doesn't have insurance, and we have a lot of free resources from the government, which TSU is part of, to make provision for this kind of people, where they can see doctors without having to pay anything and take care of themselves and live a healthy lifestyle again.
I think quickly I would just say, too, that it's important for us, similar to our cell phone, when we recognize our cell phone is down to 20% in that power save mode, right? We have some power save activities that we do, right? We shut off all of the other apps that aren't that important. We need to be able to call our first responders, call our mama maybe, or, and get to the nearest hospital if there is an urgent thing. So we should be examining and being awake to our lives in that same matter, that some of our life apps may need to be temporarily turned off because we're in power save mode. But we need to recognize that we're in power save mode so that that energy that we do have left, we can use it appropriately to get to our power charging station, whatever that may be. And then the other thing that I would say too is recognizing, again, wholeness, knowing that it's not this or that, it's this and that. So your mental wellness, your emotional wellness also are encompassed in your physical wellness, your financial wellness, your professional wellness. And so, look, let's say that you're like, well, I go to church. Well, yeah, you can pray and go to therapy. Well, I'm very intelligent and I love reading self-help books. You can read those books and come into a professional to get some perspective. And so don't think in terms of, well, I have these other things, so that'll be all right. That is one part of a whole, and we should be striving to be whole.
Yes. Yes.
Sure. So thank you for that question. As someone who accepts insurance, unfortunately, insurance companies have not gotten to the place completely where they see mental health care as preventative. Unfortunately, the way billing and claims and all of those things work that we have to deal with, look, to be able to provide care for those who work really hard and pay a lot of money for their insurance, insurance companies still see it as you need to come in with a problem that needs to be addressed, and then when that problem has resolved itself, well, you don't need counseling anymore. But we know that life doesn't work like that, right? There are ebbs and flows, and so to your point, I reflect in communities that I would love that we get to a place that we treat our mental health care like seeing our PCP, right? So for some of us, we know we're going in because there's an identified issue and we want to address it and get it resolved. Others of us, we're going in because we have questions about some things we're not really sure, so we're coming in to get some qualified information. And then those of us who go in annually for our physical exam, if we're doing well, we're going to our doctor because things are going well and we want it to stay that way. So what I often recommend to communities, especially those who are connected to organizations, when you're wanting to come in for something like that, and let's say you don't have a diagnosable condition, rely on your EAP. I am an advocate for your employee assistance program. They provide complimentary, that's no cost, y'all, sessions, sometimes as little as 3 sessions. I have some clients that have as many as 12 sessions, and it's per year, per issue. So if changing conditions happen in your life, you then qualify for another set of sessions, depending on the organization, to be able to come in and see your provider.
I'm just curious. Anybody know what an EAP is? Employee Assistance Program. If your organization is, giving you paid insurance benefits, 9 times out of 10 they have an EAP. So you have access to free counseling sessions, not only for yourself, but most organizations extend your benefits to your household, whether you're taking care of elderly adults or whether you have children or a spouse in your home that you're taking care of. To answer your question, should you get a mental checkup and should your children? Absolutely. I tell people all the time, something doesn't have to be wrong to go to therapy. If you've been saying, oh, I want to work on expanding my business or maybe learning why X, Y, and Z bothers me so much, therapy is also a complement to those things, to just leveling up and being better in life. So I tell people, and I'm a little bit biased because I do work for an EAP, right? But I'm also frugal. I'm not calling the insurance unless I've used every single free session under EAP, right? Because it's free and it's there. You're actually working for it. You work in a full-time job. Half the time, they're the ones stressing you out. Go ahead and use your EAP benefits. I'm just saying, look, go on your company's website, go under HR, go under benefits, search EAP, search counseling in the search bar of your company's organizations. Call HR and say, hey, do we have an EAP? Do we have counseling sessions? Search it, and it's going to be there.
Yes, sir.
I would agree, and that's one reason I founded the Minority Behavioral Health Alliance, was to go out into the community, be advocates for mental health. A lot of us live in underserved communities, don't even know anything about it, how to access it, but again, living in trauma situations, and to them it becomes their norm, not realizing it's abnormal. So we try to explain it, just like if you're sick, you go see a physician. If you have dental problems, you go see a dentist. And so if you have some emotional or behavior problems, go see a trained professional. There's nothing wrong with that. We have to get away from the taboo. And I heard it growing up when I was, younger as well. Go pray about it. Nothing against praying about that. But again, pray about it and go see a trained professional as well. We have to do a better job as we as in therapists going out, make sure we're pushing that in the community.
I think we also, to the point of the stigma, why does the stigma exist? What does our language look like when we're interacting with other people and they tell us something's wrong or that they're going through something? Oh, you need to go see a therapist. We're not saying it in a positive way. We're saying it in an ugly way. And that's contributing to the stigma. So be careful of the words that you use when you're going through something and you're talking to yourself, or someone around you is going through something and you're talking to them. Those are the small things that it takes to kind of break those stigmas in the first place. It'd look a lot different if you came to me and said, you know what? I saw a therapist this one time and it changed my life. This is how it helped me. That looks a lot different than, oh, girl, you need to go find, what are those shrinks or whatever they call them? Yeah, you need to go talk to somebody. You know what I'm saying? Watch the way we speak and interact with people when it comes to having something wrong. But again, I'm always forever going to stand on, therapy is not just a place you go because something is wrong emotionally or behaviorally, right? Say you just want to level up in whatever it be. Hey, I want better communication skills. Or, hey, I want to learn more about myself. So that's why I choose to go to therapy. Therapy's not just for the bad times. Really, if you're going to therapy in the bad times, you're just replacing what's empty in your cup. But when you go to therapy, when your cup is full, what happens? It's overflow.
Yeah, that was a very good point. Going back to the question Dr. Hobo asked, I mean, being a PCP practice, this is another mistake people make. when they go for the regular visit and they ask them, you don't have to be sick. Sometimes it's emotional sickness, not the body. So sometimes if you let your doctor know what you're going through, and there are some questionnaires whereby you have to fill out, are you having depression, the signs of depression, everything is there. Sometimes people tend to say no, 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 just because they want to skip it. The reason why for all this question, when you answer the right question, it can help you. They can also help you to solve the problem. And if they say they can't solve the problem, they can refer you to a counselor, to a psychiatrist. They can make the referral. But if you deny yourself and just checking, it's so easy to just like, no, 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 no. When you're filling those forms, then there is nothing they can do on that. So you can still make use of your annual visit, that we encourage everybody to go for those mental, they have to. Even if they don't ask, you ask for it. It's a right. It's part of what insurance want to say. Because with the insurance, they have a way of, you can't just jump like, I'm going to see a psychiatric without a referrer. It's not done. They will still pay if they get a referrer, but if not, they're not going to pay for that visit. So that's why we have to do it the right way.
So I think that's a very, very interesting point because I think a lot of times what people don't realize in EAP is it's designed for like the employees, but I always tell people who I refer to an EAP, here's the caveat. They work for the company. So the expectation of privacy, you're not going to get that because if the company asks for that record, the EAP has to give them that record. So major issues that people want to work through sometimes are not going to get worked through an EAP. Your other question is why many professionals don't work with an EAP. I know for me, they don't pay enough for me. For the work that you want me to do, absolutely not. I'm not going to do it. And then two, again, there is this trust issue. I can't ethically work with someone who I know I'm probably going to end up turning records over to this company that directly impacts this person. So for me, ethically speaking, I wouldn't work for an EAP in that sense. A lot of psychologists who I know don't work with EAPs. One, because again, like I think they specialize in certain areas, and again, most EAPs don't pay per specialization, so that becomes a problem too. So I think for a lot of people who are looking for therapists, I always tell them, hey, look, there are plenty of resources like Psychology Today. You can, toggle, filter what you're looking for, and kind of see if they work with individuals or work with your insurance. And then that way you do have an expectation of privacy and confidentiality, right? So things don't get told. And I think more importantly, it allows you to pick which doctor you want to work with, like who you vibe with, who you feel like there's a rapport with, rather than having someone assigned to you who might not even think about your condition or relate to your condition in any kind of form or fashion. So I think EAPs have a place, in the place that I kind of think of like workplace violence. So if somebody gets attacked in your work building, go to EAP. But if I have a problem like a traumatic experience that happened outside of work, or my child is having a problem, I probably would see a private therapist. And most insurance that I work, like I think we work with like United, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, and Aetna, they provide mental health therapy. Now the question becomes who you go and see, because the reimbursement rates are a little bit different. So they'll pay for like a licensed psychologist, but not maybe pay for a licensed like professional counselor. So that's something you really have to kind of talk to your insurance about. Who are they willing to pay and who are they not paying? And that can help you refine your search in terms of who you go see. So EAPs.
Yeah, sure. Because I do want to respond to you as well.
Please say your question again if you don't mind. The audience online about the EAP, how you'll be trying to find your daughter for 1 year plus.
I think what I want to say is that even though when we have EAP and our EAP don't cover certain doctors that we may like and we may vibe with, but then when we say, okay, we in our community, when we go outside of our insurance, it's like to get to speak to one of you guys, it's so expensive. Because even I tried that option. One doctor say was $100 an hour. Oh, holy crap. It's so expensive. So how do our community get to afford even trying to get that help? And so when we go up to these barriers, that's when we say, you know what, forget it. I'm okay anyway, even though we know we're not. So then we try to deal with this situation on our own, and then it leads to other problems. It leads to other things. And then our community, we are deemed, for me, an angry black woman. So now I can't get the help I'm looking for, even though I have EAP and the specialists are too expensive. And then now I'm in the uniform. Oh, you're an angry black woman in a uniform. So we get demonized, especially black women, over and over and over. How do we deal with that? How do we get the help we need, even though we have insurance that is not user-friendly?
Sure. Yeah. And I want to advocate and validate everything that you're saying, because I get lots of clients, they come exhausted. Carlette, if this is not going to work, then I just don't know, right? They start the conversation with that. Here's what I want to offer, a different perspective about employee assistance programs and insurance in general, right? No two things are created equal. I'm somebody's ideal therapist in one setting, and then in another setting, they're like, she is not it. But that doesn't mean that because I'm not their person, that you shouldn't continue, right, in your quest to find your person. Regarding EAP, I am an EAP provider for about 10 companies, UT EAP included. I do not work for them. I am a 1099 contracted person, and I read every single contract, and if a contract with an EAP organization says that I am required to furnish any HIPAA or privacy information back to that organization, then unfortunately that's not an organization that I choose to work with. So that I can confidently tell every single one of my EAP clients, I will not be calling your boss or the CEO of this organization just because they are paying me for you to receive this service. That does not happen. The only way that can actually happen is in a similar case, like if a court needed that information, they have to provide a justifiable reason as to wanting your information. And then let's just say that your information does need to get released. Here's the information that gets released: date, time, general reason why you came in, stress. What did we work on? The intervention, cognitive behavioral therapy, stress management, and then what's the plan? Homework, and continue seeing the provider. That is it. And that's the message that we need to get out into our communities more. Here's the other thing that I try to get clients to really advocate for themselves. If something is not working for you, you can go back and ask for another provider. Oftentimes, these organizations should be providing you with 2 or 3 anyway so that you can do a little bit of research. But I've had clients through their EAP program come to me and say, "Oh, Carla, you're my second try, and this is working out. Praise God," right? But they had to go through some others that weren't an ideal fit for them. That's an EAP's responsibility to help you find that ideal fit. Make them earn their money, regarding that. I would say the same thing regarding contacting your insurance programs, right? Those insurance lists of providers are long. And so again, a lot of times that's why we rely initially on our EAP programs, because they can help to narrow down that list. Also, be an advocate in your own organization. If you are finding that many roadblocks within that program, your organization needs a new EAP program. But they can't know that if you all aren't going back to the HR departments or whoever's facilitating this saying, these are the number of barriers that I'm running into. I'm not even able to utilize a resource. Because here's what's happening if you don't do that. If you don't do that, right, organizations are looking at numbers, and they're looking at the number of people who access or don't access that EAP program. And if that number is low, they've just may determine with their bottom line that this isn't needed, but that's not true. And so we need to use our voice, to be able to say, if this program is not an ideal program, there are lots of programs that organization can get a new contract with to be able to access providers. Final thing, agreeing with Dr. Blassingame, you get the same service for somebody who is a private pay client as an EAP client. There is no difference between the service that I provide. And so to that end, I should not be paid a menial wage for the same high quality care that you're going to get just because it's being furnished through your employer. And so in the same way that we as mental health professionals are your voice, we need you all to be our voice. That in the same way that you want a living wage to be able to support a private practice and a business, and a lot of us are going back to school, we can't do that at $35 per session.
Well, I would say that is really good information, because I did not know, a lot of us don't know that EAP, you can be required to turn over our information. So that's some really good information. That would make sense why we don't have the providers in EAP that we could have if they didn't have that to deal with.
I also want to clarify that EAPs are held under the same standards as medical professionals when it comes to confidentiality and HIPAA. We can't just turn over your records because someone asked for them. If it ain't the police with a subpoena knocking at the door, we cannot. And because most EAPs in our ethical guidelines value confidentiality and trust, we will not. We're going to close every door and put the barriers in their face, because you don't need this information. And if you do, go through a courts before it even comes to us. You're absolutely correct. If lawyers came knocking at the door, subpoenas, they went through medical records. Think about how hard it is for you to get your own medical records. It's hard. Now, just imagine someone else trying to request them. It is not easy. And I'm clarifying this as an EAP representative. It's not what we want to do. And it rarely happens. If it ever gets through due to some legal matter that happens, all that we are able to provide is this person came to counseling on this date. The details ain't your business. That's HIPAA. EAP professionals are held to the same standards as medical professionals. The second thing I wanted to clarify is an insurance panel and an EAP panel are two separate experiences, completely separate experiences.
one of the benefits of an EAP panel and just going through your EAP panel is your accessibility and support. If you call your insurance, you're on your own. You're going to call your insurance, and they're going to ask you direct questions that you may or may not have the answer to. They're going to send you a list of providers, and you got to figure it out. Or they tell you, go to the website and see who's in network. You have to figure it out on your own. A EAP exists to walk you through the barriers, if there's a barrier. A EAP exists to make counseling accessible. Hey, here are some providers with availability that meet your needs for virtual or in person or whatever specialty that you're looking for. To your point of, we're not going to give you just one provider. We're going to give you multiple that match your needs, because therapy is also like trying on shoes sometimes, especially if you've never done it. You have to find a good fit. You have to find what modalities you like. Just like doctors, you got to find out which type of specialty you need. Even when you find a good specialist, you may say, I don't really vibe with this doctor. I don't like their bedside manner. Okay, therapy is no different. We're also, professionals that you may or may not vibe with. So the EAP exists to be able to walk you through that. You have somebody you can call back and say, hey, that wasn't a good fit for me. I want to try the next provider. Or, hey, when I called this provider, they didn't have any availability. Okay, cool, let me walk you through that. So I think there are major pros in working with EAPs. To the second half of what you said, which is why don't some providers work with insurance or EAP? It goes to cost. That's just honestly true. You can make more in private practice, but then who wants to pay that? And who can? And mental health, we haven't gotten to the point where everybody sees that as a priority. You see a priority on spending $300 to get your hair done, but not $300 to go, hey, to get them shoes, to get that outfit, but we're not there with mental health yet. So we might need to go ahead and take advantage of this lower cost opportunity. I'm just speaking the truth until we can prioritize that, okay, I will spend $300 to go get that. Okay, well, since you don't want to do that, these are the options that are made. I'm not going to say free to you because you work that full-time job that's stressing you out. So take advantage of the benefit that they are offering you. And when you experience any barriers, they're there to knock those barriers down. And if you feel unsupported, that's where your voice is important. Give that feedback so that you and the person behind you can walk a smoother path.
Just one more thing to add to that. I can acknowledge and say I'm guilty of that, not taking some EAPs, because it's, to be blunt, I think it's the timeliness of payments. Like some, if you get approved for 8 to 10 sessions, we have to do all 8 to 10 sessions, and then we send the invoice in for payment. If you're trying to run the business, I mean, you can't really survive like that. So I say I limit my EAP clients. I may only take 3 or 4 at a time with a 30-person caseload. So it's just about being, I don't want to say frugal from a business standpoint, but also if you guys being an advocate saying, hey, why are we holding off payment? Can you guys pay them when they're seen, opposed to going through all the sessions and then sending payment? So if you guys can help us, we can help you.
And
that's a good point. I'm going to just throw in there, when you meet a provider that you like, and if they're not on your insurance panel or your EAP panel, you can advocate to say, hey, this is the name of my EAP, or this is the name of my insurance. Can you go get credentialed with them? Did you hear a therapist just say, I will do it? And we, as minority therapists, have to do a better job of standing up and representing for ourselves. We have to put ourselves in places where our target audience would be to be able to support them. If we know they can't pay the private premium, then we need to put ourselves in spaces where they can afford it, right? Especially if you're good at what you do. Go be that outlier that exists in a place where you didn't think you'd find a good provider, and then allow people to share their stories.
And many psychologists here in tech, well, I think it's across the country, there's a part of our ethical code about benefits, right? And what that looks like, and like for the welfare of the public good. So many of us do offer pro bono spaces. We don't have a lot, but some of us have some. And so although my primary practice is at Ben Taub, and the people I see there, some of them, their care runs short because their insurance is not going to pay, so I'll see them in private practice for free until we complete that service. So The TPA, the Texas Psychological Association website, has a actual long like directory of all the available psychologists by their specialties, and if there's a pro bono clicker, and you can see who offers pro bono. I'm not saying their whole entire caseload is pro bono. They may have 1 or 2 slots, and that may be one way that you can also get access to care that way too. And so I think many of us do want to do good for our communities, but I think to your point, there's a financial piece that comes with it too. And so I think just like you're paying premium for a cardiologist, you're going to pay premium for someone who really can help you get your life together. And like, it's no tea, no shade, but it's just the way of what it is. It's truly health in that case there. But But, so that's it. But there's one more question from the audience.
Okay. I mean, if you don't, please forgive us because we're supposed to have ended at 12:30. But I mean, this is a good conversation. So as long as our online audience are still on, so thank God.
So I have a question from the audience, and so this is, I think, speaking to like the larger political atmosphere. So the question is, it's what are your thoughts and opinions about the list that this new administration is promoting for the intentions of getting rid of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion? So the second part of that is, as clinicians, how does this list impact how you document and how you provide care?
I just say it doesn't. HIPAA is still active, the active governing thing that we use, and unless and until somebody furnishes a subpoena that says that we need to provide additional information, it's not happening, right? As you're sitting in my office on my chair, you are me and I am you. And so in the same way that I want my information protected and safeguarded with my providers, I'm going to do the exact same for you. And so I try to get, clients to think about micro and macro impacts, right? So we see this very macro thing happening, and we're zooming in. Oh my gosh, how is this going to relate to me? But also remember what I said earlier about present moment awareness, because sometimes we're thinking about a macro impact that really isn't impacting us presently. Presently, HIPAA is still the law.
Yeah, she says it all. Nothing. Don't be scared. I think there's just a lot of, anxiety in the room with all these changes, and people are, and just going back to the social media thing, some people are already talking about these things. Oh, you can't have any privacy in the country because they can easily get this from your doctor. No, it's not possible. Is not possible.
But I will say this, like in the hospital system, there are some things that are not necessarily private. And so Baylor College of Medicine, along with all of its affiliates, like including Texas Children's Hospital, have started collecting immigration status. And this is coming from the state level legislation. And so the question is, what are you going to do with this information? We don't know what the consequence looks like. And so typically that one piece of information, we tell our patients, you have rights. And the right is you don't have to answer that question. It's not going to stop you from getting care, but there are some things like on a state level that forces organizations like Baylor College of Medicine. So we're a private institution, but we do get national and state funding. So some of these fundings are tied to requirements that the state requires of us. So sometimes some things are forced that way, but like your personal medical record, what we document in your electronic medical record, that stays the same. So that doesn't impact our care to you or what we do. Now, I think more and more clinicians are being more, I think, conservative about what they're putting in your medical records in the event that something passes in the future. So I think we're being more proactive to make sure our patients are protected the best way that we can legally. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure we can go on 1 more hour, but as Khalid, as you said initially, we respect your time and we really, really value this information. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot and I thought I knew, but realizing that, oh no, there's still so much more for me to learn. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Blasingame, you are an amazing moderator. Thank you so much. And you know what? I've had so many questions about, okay, how can we meet you all? I know you all have your cards here for those in person, but for those who have a private practice, can you just shout out for those online? Just tell us how they can reach out to you if they want to book a session with you, sir.
My website is mytherapysolution.com. Again, that's mytherapysolution.com. Solution without the S.
And I am not currently accepting private clients at this time. However, for assessment, you can go to Houston Circle of Hope for support.
Okay, I have a private practice and pretty much I see everyone. And the website is healthwaysolutionpllc.com. healthwaysolutionspllc.com.
I see clients age 13 to 65 plus, because there are some 75-year-olds that say, I'm not too old to change. Come on. All right. You can catch me at csmcounseling.com. There'll be a place for you to request an initial consultation if you want to do that. But you can also find me on Instagram, and that's at the CSM Company. And for those of you that, maybe there's a barrier right now to being able to access care, I post videos and helpful information, and you can get the therapy experience right on Instagram.
Thank you.
And I see patients at Bentop Hospital. So for people who live in Harris County, if you don't have insurance, you can apply for a gold card, and that's through a grant. So that the care that you get through Harris Health, either at LBJ or at Bentop, it's covered by this grant. And so typically, I'll see patients who typically wouldn't see a therapist through there. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Can you just give them one of our applause, please? Thank you so much for your time. This is invaluable information. Thank you. And I'm just going to go up and just close up this session. For our community health workers, please feel free to again scan the QR code, and that will take you to our link tree and go ahead and sign in the attendance. And please, this is optional, but please go ahead and do a program evaluation for us so that we can get feedback from you all. And also the post survey. Tell us how you like this and what you want to hear about next time. And this is our CEC calendar of events. Just for you to please follow us on June. We're going to be talking about technology, artificial intelligence, and social media in healthcare. That will take place online via Zoom. Again, if you scan the QR code, you'll be privy to our Zoom registration, which you can avail yourself of. September and October. September is prostate cancer event taking place at Progressive New Hope Church in Houston, Texas. And We Roar Against Breast Cancer is taking place at TSU campus. Again, for our on-site participants, we can feel free to, if you are interested in signing up in our clinical registry, please avail yourself of it, and the QR code as well will take you there as well for those online and those in person. Again, it's a wrap. Thank you for giving us an hour, about 43 minutes. We appreciate your time. To all our panelists, the moderator, the speaker, we are really grateful for you. And for those who are here, join in person, please give us a pat on the back. Thank you again to Precinct 2, to Fort Bend County for allowing us host this event here today. We couldn't have done it without you. Constellation X, you rock as always. To our TSU partners and team members, thank you. And we are signing off. See you again next month. Thank you. Bye.